from the day we left Earth, and you're watching Richard Metal Fan.
What's up, guys? Bringing you guys another episode of Richard Metal Fan Interviews, calling from Zoom, and I'm here with Martin from The Day We Left Earth. So, how are you doing today, Martin? It's great to be able to have you on.
I'm doing great, thank you. Thank you for the invite. I appreciate it.
Anytime, man, anytime. So, kind of what I want to talk about like is pretty much your musical history and just sort of do a rundown of your discography, but take me back to young Martin Bjerke. So, growing up, what were the first bands that got you into rock and metal, and what made you want to be a vocalist?
Uh, yeah, that's a good question. I think I've kind of just always. So my dad was a rock guy. So when I was young, I wasn't really introduced to a lot of the pop stuff like Britney Spears or whatever. It wasn't really a part of my life when I was young because what your parents listened to as a kid kind of influences you in a way, if that makes sense. So there was always rock and metal. I was introduced to things like Nightwish or Camelot from like, I don't know, 5 years old. So it
Wow.
was kind of what I was used to listening to. Yeah, it was different. When you're a kid, you don't know that, right? So it was
Yeah.
just kind of what was around. And I remember seeing Kiss, with the masks and the crazy performances, and probably had a pretty big impact on me. In terms of singing, it was just I was just kind of always doing it. It wasn't really there wasn't really a choice that hey, I'm going to be a singer. I think I just always did music. I played drums, I played bass, I played guitar. I just kind of did it all. Um, but then when I started writing my own music, it just felt natural to be a singer because I could kind of communicate what I wanted to communicate most effectively instead of trying to find someone that could do it. So then it just kind of happened like that. It wasn't really any point where I was like, yeah, I'm going to be a singer. It was just who I was from a very young age. If that makes
Awesome.
sense.
Yeah, totally. And before I think the day we left Earth, you were in 7 days in Alaska. Like, tell me about that because nobody ever talks about that band.
Yeah. Yeah, no. Well, yes, I was very young when that whole thing started. I was probably 17 or something. And you know, I was very early, very young, started writing songs that started to have some sort of quality that wasn't just, you always start in your local bands and you play local shows, that whole thing. Well, 7 Days in Alaska was kind of the first when it started to get a bit serious. There was like this American Grammy winning producer. And at the time, that was kind of crazy to us, right? Because big names and all of that. Discovered a song that we wrote, and we got the chance to like go to America, go to LA, and start
Wow.
working on an album. And yeah, that was very big at the time. It was a
Yeah.
it was a proper adventure.
Yeah, so
And
that
when we
was
got
like your
home, we
first
got
time in
signed.
America.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was a crazy, that whole journey was just crazy. Everything just went wrong on that trip. We got scammed for the
Oh
place we were
shit.
gonna live, and we ended up in this mansion with a Wall Street millionaire. Everything was just kind of crazy at that trip. It was everything that I had imagined that it would be, if that makes sense. Because I'm from Norway. We're a small country with very restrictive kind of people where we're very personal and we do our own thing, stick to our lane sort of thing. While LA was just the opposite. I came down there and everything was just crazy from day one. Everything was so big and crazy, and I was 17 years old, right, and working with
Really?
Grammy
Damn.
winners, and it was just incredible. We got signed when we got home, and we did decently in our country, but we never really got that song that just kind of broke through, if you will. Times have changed since then, and we live in a very different world now with streaming and everything. Because this was right when Spotify had started to be relevant, but we still had radio that mattered. We still had iTunes, and our first single went charted on pretty decently on iTunes.
Yeah.
So we kind of got a career started, but it never really went anywhere of significance. And by the time COVID rolled around, then it was just we had nothing left and we couldn't even tour anymore. So it was just kind of like, yeah, let's call it a day sort of thing.
Yeah, which is
And by
which is
the
you were saying.
no, I was just gonna finish the thing with, and for a long time I wanted to come back to more solid rock and metal, because the thing we were kind of in record deals and all kinds of things that it felt like we had to stay in the pop rock lane, and a lot of the industry tried to kind of push us into a boy bandish sort of thing. And and then we were very young when we got signed, so we had no clue what anything was. We were just excited to make music and do it seriously. So yeah.
Yeah, because I actually checked out the 7 Days in Alaska album, Dancing with Ghosts. I thought that was a great album. I feel like you all had like
Thank you.
something going there.
Yeah, I think we were very young when we started, and it probably took us, I don't remember, but probably 3 years to finish that record, because we wrote it all over the world. Actually, we wrote it in parts of it in LA, parts of it in Nashville, parts of it in Northern Ireland. So we were just kind of all over. There was the record companies really believed in that band. So we were kind of thrown all over the place, and we did so many things that were a dream. It was a dream come true, most of it, that period of my life. But as said, we never kind of got over the edge with it. And as we've spent so much time and energy and money on that record, it was hard by the time COVID rolled around, to kind of get our bearings and find the path forward. Especially when you're so young, when you get signed, you don't know how things work, and it's easy to be influenced by the industry that you should do this and you should do that and all these things. um, so it was great, and I also think there's some good songs on that album,
Yeah.
and it would be cool to get another try at it. Take another stab at an album, 7 Days in Alaska, but it's also hard to find the time these days.
Yeah. And so when the COVID rolled around, was that right around the time when you started up The Day We Left Earth?
Yeah, I think The Day We Left Earth was just kind of a natural evolution for me, from where I was writing wise. Simon, who I make all the Left Earth songs with, um, he's been in and out of 7 Days too, into as a producer. So he's been around with 7 Days too. Um, and it was just a natural evolution of where I wanted to go. I wanted to explore rock and metal more than the pop parts, I guess you could say. So it's just kind of a natural evolution from my, I don't know, musical journey. That sounds very grandiose, but yeah.
Yeah. And then kind of jumping ahead into 2024, you did the self-titled Day We Left Earth album, which I think is a really great debut, a great way to hit the ground running. So what was sort of like the whole writing and recording process, being it was sort of the first album?
Well, to me, I've said this before, but to me, the first album isn't really an album in my eyes. It's more of a. So we wanted to release music. We just wanted to throw things at the wall, what we found cool and what we wanted to make, and kind of figure out where do we want to take this. And then we were working with the Sony label for that album, and they wanted to kind of stack it together, call it an album sort of thing. But it wasn't from us. It wasn't really a. To me, an album needs to have a purpose. There needs to be a body of work that works together and communicates somehow. Well, the first album is just a lot of singles, that what we called an album. In terms of the process, it was just exactly that. It was just us having fun in the studio, making what we wanted to make and seeing where we could take it. And the first album is kind of the result, which is also why we didn't call it anything. It doesn't have a title, because it's just, this is us right now sort of thing.
Yeah, definitely. Because anytime when a band does like a self-titled, I always feel like it's like a bold statement. I mean, especially like it
Mm.
being like the first album, it's just like just showing like, hey, this is who we are.
Yeah, it from us it definitely isn't, wasn't really, to us it was kind of the opposite. It was just we don't really feel like we have the album is kind of all over the place. You know, you have some songs like Thunder or Eden, which is definitely sounds this sort of thing. It sounds more European modern metal sort of thing. And then you get to songs like, I don't know, like Hurricane or something that is different in its approach and its production and all things. So to us, it just made sense that this doesn't have a clear vision of what it wants to be. This is just songs that we wrote that we're happy with, and we feel like this represents what we are right now. So yeah, it was kind of the opposite from for us than like a bold "this is who we are." It was more like we don't really know who we are yet, and we don't really know what this album is. So here's some cool songs, and then you have fun with that, and then we'll get to work on the next one, sort of thing.
Yeah. And of course, like the album has been out for almost two years now. Like how has like the overall like
Mm.
reception and feedback been?
Well, we I was told when I started the day we left Earth, I was told that you shouldn't, from the industry sort of thing, you should not make metal music. No one listens to metal music. Blah 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 blah. And the first album has, I don't know how many million streams we have on that album now, but we went. It did fairly well, especially as a new band with no real history other than putting singles out. So it's been beyond all we kind of thought it would be. For us, it was testing the waters. Let's do an album. Let's see how it goes. And then people have reacted to that in a big way. There's a lot of people listening to it, which we are incredibly thankful for and excited about. And it's also allowed us to like, okay, so people like this. We should take this seriously. We should, do this properly, which is what we've been working on for the longest time now. I'm sure we'll get into that later. But yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, and of course like before you released the large like amount of like the singles before the album, like how important do you think are singles in this sort of like era in comparison to sort of like the full-length releases?
it's a cool question. I think I would have answered this question differently 3 years ago. Because for the longest time, singles was kind of the only thing you could do. Like if you were looking to kind of do a professional run, then singles is obviously the way to go because of playlisting. Maybe you could put radio in here. All these factors that kind of can create a success release. Because if you do an album, you have one shot in an album, right? If you in terms of a release, a single and an album is one unit, if that makes sense. So if you're looking for playlisting on Spotify or whatever, then it's one release. So it's obviously better to split them up and do more releases, right? In terms of numbers, anyway. But today, I think things have changed a bit. I think it's up to the artist now more than anything. I mean, we lived in this world where everything social media is really important and we need to do reels and we need to do all these things to promote everything, and then Sleep Token rolls around and does the exact opposite. They just don't care about all of that. They just gives us something that is very authentic and very real, and it shows that people are craving that, something that feels organic and natural. And I think that's going to get even worse in the years to come when AI, it's sometimes even hard to separate what's real from AI already
Yeah.
now when
A
you're watching
cancer to
videos and stuff.
society.
Yeah, so and that's not going to slow down. That's just going to get worse. So I think artists' job more than ever is to give things that are authentic, things that are real. So I don't think there's a specific answer for this anymore. I think if the album needs to be an album, then release it as an album. If you are if it is singles, if it is songs, do songs. I don't think there's a this is what you should do anymore. I think you need to do what is authentic for that artist. And that doesn't mean that everyone should do what Sleep Token does. Absolutely not. But there's definitely room for this in the years to come, I think, to just do whatever I don't know if I can swear here,
Yeah. Hey,
but
hey,
do
do whatever
whatever
you
the,
want. Want fuck
yeah,
censorship.
yeah, so do whatever the fuck you want, I think is the reality here. I think at the end of the day, good music is good music. Doesn't matter what shape or form or genre it is. Doesn't matter.
Awesome.
And people is going to connect with something that is real, regardless of how you release it.
Yeah. And of course, on the album, especially on Wasteland and Hurricane, you've of course collaborated with one of my favorite bands, Dead by April. So what was that like
Yeah.
working with them?
Um, well, we've obviously worked with them many times now. So to us, it's kind of, so Pontus is a very good friend of me. We are very close friends and we talk all the time. Um, so it's kind of natural for us now. It's just if I'm working on something or he's working on something, and then we have a phone call or something, and then we just kind of feel like, oh yeah, and then we can do like this, and then we do like this, and it just kind of naturally happens. Obviously, at the start, we were incredibly lucky that they wanted to work with us because obviously they're a much bigger band than we are. So, and we absolutely owe a lot to them for, not giving a fuck about politics or numbers or just focusing on the music. And they liked Wasteland. So it's just a very natural, organic thing. It's not really a political or strategic move in any kind of way. It's just we like making music together and we work well together. So sometimes we do that and sometimes we don't.
Hmm. Nice. And I know you also collaborated again with the song Parasite, which also features Syra. So tell me about that
Mhm.
song.
Well, Syra, the funny thing is Jake, the singer for Syra, has been managing The Day We Left Earth
Really?
for quite a
Wow.
while. Yeah, yeah, yeah. He's in on that side. So it was just, I don't remember exactly how it came about, but it was one of those throw your hat in the ring and just what if we were a part of it too? And then why not? That's kind of the mentality I have at this point. I don't really give a fuck about anything. I just want to make cool songs. That's all I care about. Sure, if you're doing this professionally, then there are things you need to worry about and care about, but I do all I can to not think about it and just let's make cool songs and fuck everything else. Um, so that was also one of those, as I said, natural. Everything we do in terms of collaborations, etc., is organic and natural. It just we know some people, and then we talk together, we write together, and why not, sort of thing.
Yeah. And of course the latest thing last year you also released the two singles Afterlife and of course Survivor with APOC. So tell me about that.
Afterlife is a embodiment of everything I just said. Because I we knew when we released that song that there was going to be people who is like, what is this? I I specifically remember a comment. I don't remember where it was, if there was YouTube or social media somewhere, I don't know. But there was a guy who commented on that song and saying that I love Melancholia and some of our older songs. And so why am I listening to this Nintendo shit? And I get I get where he's coming from with that, right? It's definitely a left field song, but that's also, like I've said a lot now, is that that's something we take pride in not giving a fuck about. We want to write and we want to make what feels natural and cool and exciting for us. We don't want to be one of those bands that are boxed in and is going to release the same song after the same song after the same song. It just isn't interesting for us.
Yeah.
And that
Unless if you're
sometimes,
AC/DC.
well, yeah, yeah. It's just more interesting for us to explore different things. If we do an album, we're definitely at one album for us, which we are working on now,
Yeah.
is definitely gonna have a red line and a this is how this album sounds. But by the time we get to another album, who knows what we're gonna do? Maybe we do a pop punk album. I'm not saying we're doing that, but it's we don't want those rules. I hate those rules because they limit creativity and they put you in this box and you can't get out of it, which is completely uninteresting to us.
Yeah.
And in terms of Survivor, it was also one of those, we the Smash Into Pieces people.
Love that
We've kind
band.
of, yeah, they're great. They're also doing the Eurovision thing now again. Um, but yeah, we've kind of been in that circle for a while. So it just was one of those, hey, why don't we do something? And then we did something. Um, so yeah.
Nice. Nice. And how far along is the new album? Will you kind of continue in the same vein as the self-titled, or you will you try something different that The Day We Left Earth hasn't done before?
So the next album is almost a soft relaunch of The Day We Left Earth. It's kind of become, it started like a continuation of what we've been doing, but then it kind of just evolved. And I know there's a lot of people out there who's like, I can't release an Instagram story now without at least four people yelling at me almost for not announcing new music. Because so I know it's been a while and people are used to a lot of releases from us and from other artists, and then it suddenly becomes all quiet. I get that. But it's just kind of grown and grown and grown and grown. The ideas were cool in the groundwork, but it's just evolved a lot. So the brand is going to look very different. The album is definitely The Day We Left Earth. I think it's closer to something like Parasite, Hurricane, that kind of thing, more than it is Eden and Thunder. But we got some really dark and heavy stuff on this album. So, I'm not saying that all of it is that, but it's taken far more time than we anticipated, and I'm afraid that it will continue to take even more time than we wanted. We are releasing music this year, but to be completely honest, we were planning on releasing the first single this month, actually, but we've had to postpone it for different reasons. Because when ideas become big, then it also takes more time to execute them, if that
Yeah.
makes sense. Because
Yeah.
it's the music is, I think half of the album is musically done, written, but we have so many other things that we need to take care of before we can release, and that is a pain in the ass. But yeah,
Yeah.
I forgot the question.
Yeah. But with this album, do you feel like pressure to follow up the self-titled? Because do you ever worried about having that kind of like sophomore slump that some bands have?
No, not really, because I there's at this stage there's a lot of things in the first album that I would personally change or that I would like to do again. Um, so no, not really. I think this is a bold statement, but I think the songs we have done now is the best work we've ever done, and it's not even close in my opinion. This this new album is more like what the way you explained the self-titled album earlier. This album is closer to that. It's a bit more mature. The lyrical content is also, I'm not saying that the lyrical content on the first record is bad or anything, but this is definitely taking it a step further in themes, in writing. There's so much that we've poured into this new thing, and I just hope that people understands that it's not because we're lazy or not working. It's the opposite. But we wanted to be where we wanted to be before we release anything.
Yeah. And so kind of also like in the end to sort of wrap things up, what's next for The Day We Left Earth? I know you mentioned you're working on new music. It's just anything else with the band you also like to plug in terms of maybe tours and stuff. And can we get The Day We Left Earth to come tour the States? We'd love to have you.
Um, so touring, we will play live this year. I can't say anything, but we are playing this year. Not America, unfortunately. The thing with
Wah,
America
wah.
is we would love to go there. We know we have a lot of listeners in America too, but the thing is that it's so freaking expensive to go to the States. So that is cannot see us going to the States in the remote future anyway. We definitely want to do it at some point, but it's just such a big undertaking. So when we're playing, we're probably doing European stuff
Yeah.
first, unfortunately.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I'll have to come see you. I have a passport. I'm all set.
Yeah. Well, we are playing this year. We're doing a pretty cool thing at the end of the year as well, but I don't want to announce
Ooh.
anything yet. But we are definitely playing this year, which will be cool because it will be. We actually haven't played live with the Day We Left Earth. We've decided to not do that for the longest time, and people are yelling to me about that too.
Yeah. Like,
But
come to Brazil.
yeah, but it's usually bands play live fairly quickly, but we've kind of focused on establishing the music first, and then we will take those songs with us when it's about time. And now we're getting ready to do that, but one step at a time, sort of thing.
Cool. So, thank you, Martin, for this conversation. It's great to be able to have you on. It's just any final words you want to say to the viewers that are watching this to close this out?
Um, I don't really have any specifics other than please stop yelling at me for being slow. We are working. We're doing our best. It will come this year. So please be excited for it and stop yelling at me for being slow.
No. It's great. So, everybody, Martin from The Day We Left Earth, and we'll see you next time.